Hi again. Let's continue talking about making our own custom controls. So in the last video, we set up our control and we added some inspectable properties and IB designable so we could view our stuff in Storyboard here. And this is what it looks like so far. At this point, I think we're far enough along where we should really get a firm idea of what the control is going to be that we're trying to make. Like what is it really going to look like? Now, we can continue tinkering in code and getting something to show up, but we're going to do a lot of back and forth, trial and error work until we get what we want. It's probably good at this stage, once we've got a, kind of a proof of concept thing working, that we stop and kind of work up a mock-up of what we really want to make in Sketch or some other program, right? Like we want to just mock this up in a drawing program and kind of draw what it is we want to make. And we can make, changes here a lot quicker than we can make them in Xcode, right? So this is what I've mocked up. So I want to make a kind of a track here, and then I actually want to give it kind of a little border here. So really this is just going to be another stroke that's a little fatter, right? Okay, and then this stroke will fit inside, okay? And then maybe I'll put a number in the middle there. And then maybe if you swipe left or right, like the thing will go up or down, right? Okay. So this is kind of what I mocked up, right? So let's see if we can get this to draw. So we need another line here. And I think that other line will be good because, oh, pardon me, sorry about that. The other line will be good because, let's test it here in the simulator for a second. Yeah, there it is, right? It'll be good because when I drag this down like this, like the whole track kind of disappears and then it's kind of hard to tell where the thing is. But if I had this background kind of ghosted line there, then we'd be able to see it, right? So, so let's give that a try, right? So we'll stop here. I'm going to go back to our circle path there, and I'm going to add another private variable. I think I added the keyword private in here in between recording the video, so I'll just point out that if I make these properties private, then they're not accessible outside of circle path. And so that's kind of good. Like we want to mark some of our variables private because we don't want people tinkering with them because it'll break how our class works, right? It'll break it. Like if people edit these, then it might not work correctly. These properties down here are public. So anybody can call the stroke width method to change the stroke size, and that's okay. And they can call the value to change the the length that is stroked on the path, right? So that's perfectly okay too, right? So these are public. These are private over here, right? So let's add another shape layer. So this will be, let's call this back shape, okay? And we'll make it a CA shape layer. And there we go, right? So we got our back shape. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find our setup method down here at the bottom. And you can see this is our gradient layer here. And then I added the other shape layer here. So let's put in a comment here and say setup gradient. You might want to refactor this a little bit, for legibility, right? And then I'll say setup, main stroke. I don't know, right? And what I want to do is I want to add that background stroke right here. Now, when you add layers, the first layer that you add goes on the bottom. Imagine that you're stacking plates, in your kitchen, right? And you put a plate down, or pancakes, right? The first pancake goes on the bottom, and then the next pancake or plate goes above that one on top, right? So this one would be in front. But what I want to do is I want to sandwich a layer like this light gray oval right here. This one, I want to sandwich that in between the dark gray background or which actually this gradient background and the foreground one, right? So let me put that guy back there. Okay, so maybe right here. Actually, you know what? This might have to go before. Come to think of it, I might have to actually put it before the gradient. It's got to go above the gradient, actually. Let's go over here. Sorry. So let's do this. Let's do setup back layer. I don't know, right? And then what we'll do is we'll say layer, add sublayer back shape, right? Let's make that shape, back shape, right? Okay, so we're going to add that guy here. And then what we need to do is we need to assign a path to this and then some options for drawing, right? Like the stroke, the line width, and the stroke color, okay? So what we'll do is we'll go down here, and we've actually already created the path, right? So we've got a path right here, and we could draw another one, but you know what? The two paths are going to be exactly the same. It's only how they get drawn that makes a difference, right? So since we added this layer here, it'll be underneath the other layers. And what we'll do is I'm going to go down a little bit further here. Let me kind of group this code together. And I'm going to delete this old animation code because we're not using that anymore, right? So this is where we, we created the path there, and then we set some options on the shape layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to back layer here. Wait, what did I call that guy? Oh, back shape. No wonder it doesn't find it right. Back shape. And then I'll say dot path equals path, right? And this path is the one that we drew earlier, right? So it'll be the same path, right? And that's okay. We can reuse that one. We got to put dot .cg path on the end here. And then what we'll do is we'll say back shape dot stroke, line width, right? Line width equals, let's call it stroke width for now. So if I want it to be, it's going to be the same size now. We'll add a little bit to it later to make it a little bit bigger, right? But we'll do this one as stroke width. And then we'll say back shape dot stroke color equals, and in the one that I did here in Sketch, what I think I did is I set the background color of this to, actually I made it a gradient, but imagine that this actually was just white with a, imagine it was white, and then I made it partially transparent, right? So I turned the transparency down to like 20%, right? Maybe we'll want to make this a color that we can set in Storyboard as an IB inspectable, right? So we'll do that later, right? So we'll do color, and I'm going to type the parentheses and then type in white, right? Let me do it again there. Yeah, right. So I'll do color white. So when you choose a white one, the value here is 0 to 1. So when you use 1, the color is white. Okay, if you did 0, the color is black. If you did 0.5, the color would be 50% gray. So I'm going to put 1 there. And then for the alpha, I'm going to make it 0.2. So it'll be mostly transparent. Okay? And then I think that that's pretty good. I'm going to change this and remove the dashed line pattern because my storyboard or my sketch here has kind of rounded corners and the stroke is solid, right? So I'm going to remove the dashed line. And then what I think I'll do is I'll change shape layer to a, I'll give it a line cap. And you'll notice the value for line cap is a string, and there's some constant values in here. It's like KCA line cap. I can't remember what it is, but you know what works is if we just type in round. Okay, so I'm going to make that line cap as round, and then I'll do the same thing here on the back shape. So I'll say line cap equals round like this, right? Okay, so now remember the shape layer is going to get drawn. The stroke end is going to get drawn, right? This one, the stroke goes all the way to the end, okay? Without, we're never going to draw this one, right? So let's see what it looks like there. Let's go to, oh yeah, you know what? This has to have .cg color on the end, right? There we go, right? So that fixes that. Let's take a look in Storyboard. So I have to wait for Storyboard to redraw itself. Hey, that looks pretty good. You know what? I'm getting this fill. I forgot. We got to go in and set the fill. So let's go in here and say back shape. Fill color is UI color dot clear dot CG color. Okay, so we'll do that, and then I'm going to change so we can kind of view what it looks like. I'm going to change the value here to 0.1. So or 0.5. Let's make it 0.5, right? So now when I test, there we go. So now we've got this. That's pretty close, right? So I can change the, actually I tested it there. Let's go test it in Storyboard, right? Wait for it to draw. There you go, right? So same thing, right? So, you know, we can change the stroke width here, right? And that should change both of them. Nice, right? So now if we made this like a little bit bigger stroke width than the other one, or made this one a little bit smaller, it would always fall inside, right? Right? So I'll leave that up to you. You can solve that one on your own. Maybe also try this. Let me give you another suggestion. If we could set the initial value in Storyboard here as an inspectable, then we could also set the length here, and we could see like how it worked by changing the value here in Storyboard, right? If you change the thickness of this line, you may have to adjust the radius of the circle to keep it inside the rectangle here. Okay, so anyway, I'll leave that as a couple simple challenges for you guys to do. And then in the next video, we'll kind of pick this up and kind of start turning it into a control where we can swipe to change the value. Okay, so anyway, thanks for watching, and good luck.